This is episode 21 of season 5 of the Gospelovergimmicks podcast. Today we're going to talk about a subject of contention, women in the pulpit. Let's get after it. Thank you for joining me for the Gospelovergimmicks podcast. I'm your host, Richard Storm Norman, here to tell you everything I know and some things I highly suspect. Today we're going to talk about if a woman can be a pastor. Is it biblical? What roles are for women and which roles are for men? We'll also look at some arguments made for women preachers. Now, if you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time, you pretty much already know where I'm about to come out at on this. But this episode was requested, and I figured it's been a while since I talked about it. I might have talked about it before, I'm not 100% sure. But we're going to talk about it again today. Before we get into that, though, how are you doing? Coronavirus update. I had to get tested. So I found out last week that the state health department or whatever had making everybody at my, because I work at a retirement, I've told y'all before, I work at a retirement community, so it's kind of a medical facility, I guess. The elderly are very susceptible to the COVID-19 and whatnot. So everybody on campus had to get tested Saturday, employees and residents. So I went in there and got the old whoop whoop up the nose, and I actually just got my results back right before. Today's Monday, and I just got my results back right before I came on. Right when I walked in the door of the house, had a text message from the people who did the test, and I'm negative, which I already knew. But I'm negative for coronavirus, so there's your coronavirus update. Only thing that concerns me is if I'd have failed the test, I couldn't go back to work, so I can keep working and paying bills, so that's good. I thought I'd throw a question out for y'all, because I was, you know how YouTube, they suggest videos and whatnot for you? Well, they kept suggesting these videos from this one channel. And I'm like, oh God, he's probably a Calvinist and whatnot, and this and that. He might be a Calvinist for all I know. But I started watching his videos. I believe his name is Spencer Smith. I believe that's his channel name, Spencer Smith. And he had some really good videos. I really like his videos and stuff. But I thought I would ask y'all, like, what other YouTube channels do you watch? If you're watching this on YouTube. Now, granted, I'm a YouTube junkie, so there's a lot of YouTube channels I watch. A lot of y'all who watch my videos, I watch your videos too. So, but if you got a YouTube channel, that's similar to the kind of content I do, let me know. I'd like to hear about it and go check it out. So I was watching the Spencer Davis one. He uses the KJV. Seems to use it, and I've only watched 3 or 4 of his videos, but he seems to use the KJV. I'm not sure if he's King James only, but he's definitely fundamental. I'm not sure exactly to what extent, but I really enjoyed his videos. I don't see many people doing videos on Stephen Furtick's heresy and whatnot. Where you see people exposing the false teachers like Joel Osteen, G.D. Jakes, which he does do G.D. Jakes too, and Joyce Meyer and all that, but it's not often you see somebody. Stephen Furtick, I think, is more popular than all them other ones I just mentioned, and he did a good job of exposing him on his channel. But I just thought I'd throw that out there, see if y'all could help feed my YouTube addiction with some other channels I could check out. Stickers, I have not ordered any. I'm going to get paid this Friday, I believe. I think I get paid this Friday. I'm not sure. But when I get paid, I'm going to order some stickers with the new logo on them. I was going to go do it the other night, but I realized I don't have anything ready to give them to make the stickers. So I'm going to get that together and get it to Sticker Mule and order some stickers. The goal is to have, I don't know if it's going to happen because you know how shipping is with the coronavirus. Has got shipping all messed up and whatnot. But hopefully those stickers come in before the last episode of the season, because even though I'm not shipping the Bible out, you know, usually when you want a Bible for me, I stick a sticker in it and ship it out. But since we're doing the Bible giveaway a little bit differently this time, I'm going to order the Bible from Church Bible Publishers, and they're going to ship it to you. But the winner of the Bible contest, I still want to get you a sticker. But I don't know if they're going to be in because of the way shipping is. But hopefully they will be. Regardless, you're going to get one. But I was hoping to get one by the end of the season. We shall see. We shall see. And also don't forget to get in on the Bible giveaway. Go back and watch episode 20. Or listen to episode 20, whatever. All you got to do is comment on that video that you want to be entered into the Bible giveaway contest on episode 20. So if you do it on this episode, it don't count. But if you do it on episode 20 or on Facebook on the episode 20 post, either the YouTube video or the audio, or you can send me an email and let me know you want to be in the contest as well, and you'll see the Bible. You'll see the email address at the end of the show, or you can just look in the description and get it. But that's all I got. I'm trying to get this podcast done before my wife gets home. So let's go ahead and get into the main topic: women in the pulpit. Okay, so let's not finish. You know, it wouldn't be right if we didn't finish up season 5 with a little bit of controversy. Yeah, I have a little I don't know if we've had a controversial episode. You know, this is one of them topics that just get people's knickers in a bunch, as they say. So, women in the pulpit is a growing trend among the evangelis, as I like to call them. But if you're watching this or listening, you probably know I'm not an evangeli. There are plenty of arguments for females in the pulpit, and all of them are pretty weak, I think. And we'll get to those later at the end of the topic. We'll get to those arguments that they make. But let's go ahead and get the usual suspects up on stage, the usual verses people always go to. 1 Corinthians 14, verses 34 and 35. Let your women keep silence in the churches, for it is not permitted unto them to speak, but they are commanded to be under obedience, as also saith the law. And if they will learn anything, let them ask their husbands at home, for it is a shame for women to speak in the church. Now, as we always say on here, we like to look at things in context. I should have brought me a Mountain Dew in here. It is hot in here. I don't know what I did. I changed the filter in the AC, and now it's hot in here for some reason. I don't know. But anyway, in the context of this chapter, the theme here is tongues and prophecy and orderly worship. Now, I don't want to get into speaking tongues and all that. I've done episodes on that before. But starting in verse 26, Paul lays out how things should be done in an orderly fashion in the church service. You can go back and read that if you want to, where it talks about, how is it then, brethren, when you come together, every one of you hath a psalm, hath a doctrine, hath a tongue, hath a revelation, hath an interpretation, let all things be done unto edifying. And then he lays out how things should be done, where it shouldn't be, you know, so-and-so jumping up and talking, and then this guy jumps up and talks over him and whatnot. He's like, hey, if you're going to speak in tongues in the church, 2 or 3, and they got to have an interpreter. And let them go one by one, not all jumping up at one time. Just one by one. Keep order in your service so that it's not confusing to outsiders. But when it gets to the women, it speaks of men and how they shouldn't talk all at once. But when it gets to verse 34, women were not allowed to speak in tongues. They were not allowed to speak in tongues. So you might be saying to yourself, well, then how does that say women can't be preachers? Don't really say that. Don't really say that. But there is something to be said about the fact that Paul's saying it's okay for the men to get up and speak, but not the women. Now, he might not be talking about preaching per se, or he kind of is because he's talking about prophesying. But the women at that time, much like today, they would get up and they would just spew out some nonsense, some unbiblical, things, and Paul didn't want that. Paul didn't want that because you have to get into the whole cultural aspect of it and whatnot. But we'll move on from there. We'll talk about culture a little bit later on as well. Then the other usual suspect is 1 Timothy chapter number 2 and verse 11 and 12. Let the woman learn in silence with all subjection, but I suffer not a woman to teach, nor to usurp authority over the man, but to be in silence. So if 1 Corinthians wasn't technically talking about what we're talking about, well, this one's kind of hard to say it's not. It's pretty self-explanatory. Not that women can't teach at all. We're going to get into that a little bit later as well. But they cannot teach men. A teacher has a position of authority. A woman's role in the church is not one of authority over the man, but one of submission. That is a woman's role in the marriage, woman's role in the church. If you notice, Paul compares the marriage, when he's speaking about marriage, he compares it to the church. It says, husbands, love your wife as Christ loved the church and gave himself for it. So the kind of submission a woman is expected to have in the marriage translates over into the church as well. Verses 13 and 14 gives the reason, for this. For Adam was first formed, then Eve, and Adam was not deceived, but the woman being deceived was in the transgression. It wasn't Adam that Satan deceived, it was the woman. So who's more likely to get deceived? A male preacher or a woman preacher? You ain't got to like it, but look at the women preachers we got that are well known. Are they teaching sound doctrine? I've not heard one teaching sound doctrine. The Bible gives us the qualifications of a bishop or a pastor. 1 Timothy 3:3, starting in verse 3. We'll start in verse number 1. This is a true saying, if a man desire the office of a bishop, he desireth a good work. And another thing is the Greek word used for bishop, which is the same as pastor, they mean the same thing, is a masculine noun. It's a masculine noun. A bishop then must be blameless, the husband of one wife, vigilant, sober, of good behavior, given to hospitality, apt to teach, not given to wine, no striker, not greedy of filthy lucre, but patient, not a brawler, not covetousness, one that ruleth well his own house, having his children in subjection with all gravity. For if a man know not how to rule his own house, how shall he take care of the church of God? There's some things to notice here when we're reading the qualifications Paul laid out for the New Testament church's pastor. Notice multiple uses of the word he. Now I know we live in a day and age where he don't mean nothing, like there's all 3,700 genders or whatever, but in the eyes of God there's two genders, okay? There's he and she, and it doesn't say nothing about she right here. It says he. And then another problem we got here is verse number 2. Bishop must then be blameless, the husband of one wife. How is a female pastor going to be the husband of one wife? Man, that's going to be hard. I mean, I know the age we live in, but Titus 1:5-9 basically says the same thing, but we shall read it anyway. For this cause left I thee in Crete, that thou shouldest set in order the things that are wanting, and ordain elders in every city, as I had appointed thee. If any be blameless, the husband of one wife, there it is again, having faithful children, not accused of riot or unruly. For a bishop must be blameless as the steward of God, not self-willed, not soon angry, not given to wine, no striker, not given to filthy lucre, but a lover of hospitality, a lover of good men, sober, just, holy, temperate. Now look at verse 9. Holding fast the faithful word as he hath been taught, that he may be able by sound doctrine both to exhort and to convince. Now again, we see husband of one wife and he. Now these two passages we just talked about, 1 Timothy 3:3 and Titus 1:5-9 gives the qualifications of a pastor, a male pastor. Now, if if females can be pastors, please tell me what chapter and verse does it list the qualifications for a female pastor? It's not in there. You can't take this Bible and show me, well, here's the qualifications, like just laid out like we just read for a pastor. Well, that's the qualifications for a male. Here's the qualifications for a female pastor, because it ain't in here. It ain't in here. The 12 apostles, were any of them female? Nope. I mean, you can sit there and say, oh, well, you're doing this and that. You can't deny the facts. Well, that's not fair. It's only unfair if you let society determine what fair is, which is what many seem to do. We got to this place where women should be able to do everything that a man can do. Okay, well, they're not built like a man. God didn't give them the same roles. I mean, you just read in Genesis to find that out. Why would God create woman to be, he said, it is not good for man to be alone. I'll create him a helpmeet. Would it be much of a help to Adam if he'd have created another person that was just like Adam? That wouldn't have been much of a help. So is a woman to just sit in the pew and keep her mouth shut? No, that's not biblical either. Titus 2:3-5, the aged women likewise, that they be in behavior as becometh holiness, not false accusers, not given to much wine, teachers of good things. See, they can teach. Teachers of good things, that they may teach the young women to be sober, to love their husbands, to love their children. So there is a place for women teaching in the church. It's teaching other women and teaching children as well, I believe. Women can teach other women. They can even preach to other women. Not in a mixed congregation with men in there. You can call me old-fashioned if you want. I'm just telling you what the Bible says. My Sunday school teacher when I was a little boy, first Sunday school teacher I remember having was Miss Sandy. She was a woman, and she was a good Sunday school teacher too. What people fail to understand is men are not better than women, and women are not better than men, but they are each gifted at different things. God made Eve to be everything Adam was not. You understand? Likewise, we have different roles in the church. Think of an engine in a car. You have a belt running on pulleys, and the reason that illustration came to mind is because I think one of the pulleys in my truck is about to go out. I think the idler pulley or the tensioner pulley, I think one of them things is about to go out. And so it's been weighing on my mind. But in a car engine, you got the belt running on the pulleys, and you can't have one without the other. If the belt goes, the car don't run. If a pulley goes, the car don't run. Simple as that. You need them both for it to operate smoothly. One argument I've heard for women pastors, which is silly, this is a typical evangeli, we don't read the Bible and we don't study it and we don't rightly divide it kind of arguments, is that, Paul was writing about something that was cultural for the time. And you could use that argument with that first verse we read in 1 Corinthians. You could get away with that argument there. I don't think so, but you might. But the rest of the ones I read you, it's kind of hard to chalk it up to that. But people say, well, that was just Paul talking about a cultural, it was cultural for that time, for that period of time in which Paul lived. Now, one problem I have with that is that what other parts of Scripture would you like us to dismiss as cultural? Because if that's going to be your argument for that one thing, we can use that argument for a lot of things. We can. You can read something else in the Bible and say, hey, the Bible says you shouldn't do that. Well, that was cultural for that time. It was just a cultural thing. So it don't really apply to us now. No, if it's in the Bible, it applies to us. If it's a commandment, it applies to us. If it's a commandment of the New Testament church, not saying to go out and sacrifice a goat or anything, but the thing is, you don't like it. The contemporary modernist movement, they don't like it. So they try and chalk it off as, oh, it was just a cultural thing. No, it wasn't. Another argument is women in the Bible who appear to have a position of authority. Now, these are some arguments I ain't really ever heard. Well, one of them I have, but these other ones I haven't heard, and I can't even believe that people use these. Chloe and Lydia both had churches in their house. I didn't write down the verses. I should have done that. But you can go just search them in your concordance or Bible app or whatever. That talks about they had churches in their house. People's like, oh, see, Chloe and Lydia must have been women pastors because they had a church in their house. That's ridiculous. Just because they had a church in their house doesn't mean they were the pastor of it. I could let the church come meet in my house. That don't mean I'm the pastor. They're just letting them use their house as a place to meet. And then Acts 18:26, let's go ahead and read that. We'll start in 24. And a certain Jew named Apollos, born at Alexandria, an eloquent man and mighty in the Scriptures, came to Ephesus. This man was instructed in the way of the Lord, and being fervent in the Spirit, he spake and taught diligently the things of the Lord, knowing only the baptism of John. And he began to speak boldly in the synagogue, whom when Aquila and Priscilla had heard, they took him unto them, and expounded unto him the way of God more perfectly. So in Acts 26, people say, well, what about Priscilla? She was teaching Apollos, but she taught Apollos with her husband. Her husband was there with her. She wasn't doing it by herself. It was a one-on-one. She wasn't standing in front of a congregation or a group of men teaching. It was her and her husband. They were a team teaching. He already knew. It says he was learned in the Scriptures. They were just teaching him, hey, we've passed from the dispensation of the law and we're in the dispensation of the grace of God now. Because it says there he only knew of the baptism of John. So he hadn't been brought up to speed on where things were yet. And then another one, the last one, Deborah. Let's go look up Judges 4:4. We'll go look. We got time. We got some time. Judges 4:4. And Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, she judged Israel at this time. Well, what about Deborah? What about her? She was ruling Israel. The only thing is, that's a political position. That is a government position. That ain't got nothing to do with the church at all. The Bible is pretty clear that men are to pastor and to preach the flock. There's nothing in here that you can use these, like these last ones I just told you about, Chloe and Lydia. These are weak arguments that you really got to stretch out and take out of context to say that women are supposed to be preachers or women are allowed to be preachers. The Bible, if you got 37 tons of evidence for men only as preachers, and then you got 2 pounds of evidence for women only, women as preachers. I mean, like I always say, if you got a bunch of verses that say one thing, and then you say this other verse says, see, this verse says this, that doesn't mean you just proved all them other verses wrong. It just means you misunderstood that verse. If you got, all these, like Calvinism is a good example. They take all these verses, say, well, look at this verse and this verse. This says that you don't have no choice and God chooses for you. But then you got all the rest of this that says otherwise. This, the dozen verses you found that say one thing doesn't negate the 66 books in this Bible that say another. That just means you misunderstood these verses that you think say what you want them to say. But that's all I got for you today. I don't believe women are supposed to be preachers. That does not mean women can't teach, like a women's meeting. We have, my church has a women's meetings. They meet at sometimes the pastor's wife, her house, sometimes the other lady's house. They kind of move it around to each other's house and whatnot. And they kind of have a little session where whoever's, speaking to them, which is biblical. Women are allowed to teach other women. They ain't allowed to sit up in the pulpit and preach and teach to a congregation that's mixed and has men in it, because women are to be in submission in the marriage and in the church. In the church, you ain't gotta like it. You ain't gotta be my friend. That's just what the Bible says. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. Let me go over here. For social media links, a biography of me, and a list of places to get the podcast, visit the website gospelovergimmicks.org. You can buy a t-shirt at the Teespring store, which I will now link on the screen because I can't really say all that link. It's a long link. The link will be down in the description as well. You may support the podcast financially. This is how we get the Bible giveaways taken care of, how we get the subscription fees that we got to pay to host the podcast, and all these other things that have to be done. That's how they get paid for. That's how they get paid for, how this equipment got bought. Anyway, you may do that at patreon.com/gospelovergimmicks. And here are our wonderful patrons, Roger Waters, Leanna Williams, and Rusty Williams. These folks are, if you win the contest and you get that shiny new Bible of your choice, under $100, from Church Bible Publishers, those are the people to thank for it. So, you got any comments, any questions, any show suggestions? You may send them to gospelovergimmicks@gmail.com. I shouldn't have said that so fast. Gospelovergimmicks@gmail.com. That is also where you can email me to let me know you want in on the Bible giveaway contest. Winner will be chosen. Winner will be announced, I should say, July 1st on the Season 5 finale. What else I got down here? If you like what you saw today, subscribe, like, share, follow, rate, review, all those wonderful things you can do to help the podcast. And today, I'll tell you what, yesterday, I want to say it might have been Saturday. Yesterday or Saturday was my wife's spiritual birthday. She's been saved for 5 years. So if you don't have a spiritual birthday, I urge you to put your faith in Jesus Christ and believe in the death, burial, and resurrection and get saved today. I'm telling you, look at the state of this world. I wouldn't want to stay unsaved too much longer with all that's going on in the world today. You know what I'm saying? That's all I got for you. Till next week, take up your cross, carry on. So, one thing I do not know is if I've done this song before. But one thing I do know is I can't sing it, or the flip. But I want to sing it. Part of the reason I do the joyful noise segment is to show y'all you ain't got to be good at something to do it. You know, I got up, didn't know if I was going to be any good at preaching or teaching. I just got up because I felt like God wanted me to do it. So I got up and did it. And my wife, she wants to sing with the Ladies of Grace at church, the singing group. But I told her, just do it. Don't matter if you're good at it. Get up and do it. That's why I sing on this podcast. Because I know I can't sing, but I want to sing. I like singing. Anyway, this song is called I'd Like to Talk It Over with Him. On some morning when I stand in God's wonderful city, where the light of heaven's glory shall never grow dim, when I shake hands with my loved ones who've gone on before me, I'd like to talk it over with Him. I'd like to kneel down and talk it all over with Him. I'd like to say, Lord, you loved me when the path was so dim. I cannot repay Him when I meet Him in the city above. But I'd like to talk it over and thank Him for His wonderful love.